Welcome to Fun and Fundraising, everybody. The podcast where we talk with people behind top nonprofit galas and signature fundraising events to showcase how they positively transform the communities they serve. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, and today I am thrilled to have Angela Garza on as a guest. Angela is the executive director of St. Jude in the Houston area, and their upcoming signature fundraising event is the St. Jude Houston Gala with the theme this year of Imagine Beyond Possibility. And there are lots of people who do events where either people come in from other markets or they're, an organization that's looking to do a chapter in another market. So I couldn't think of anybody better to talk to than Angela about how you incorporate local feel from a national organization than an organization like St. Jude, which is beloved and known throughout the world. So with that, Angela, welcome. And I'm just so thrilled to have you here today as a guest.
Rob, I'm so happy to be here with you to talk about St. Jude and the Houston Gala. Thank you.
Absolutely. So share with our listeners who I have to imagine most everyone's aware of St. Jude, but for anyone who's not, what is the mission of St. Jude?
Yeah, so it's very simple, very pure. Our mission is finding cures and saving children. We are a nonprofit organization. Our sole focus is ending childhood cancer. We do that by providing care to families and children across the country, across the world. And I think most people resonate with St. Jude because they know that no family ever receives a bill for treatment, travel, housing, or food, so that they can focus on helping their child live. That is something that really St. Jude, we stand apart from other organizations in terms of that. A family doesn't have to worry about a bill or anything that comes with that horrific news that a doctor might be giving a family with that their child has cancer, right? So, but we're much more than that as well. We're a research hospital. We are really leading the way. The world understands and treats childhood cancer and other catastrophic diseases. We share our research freely with the world and have collaborations with medical institutions here in Houston and all over, really, truly. So, that is our sole mission, and we're super focused on really coming to or having the day that no child dies in the dawn of life. And that's our founder, Danny Thomas. That was his mantra. So we're laser focused on that goal.
That is absolutely fantastic. And you mentioned catastrophic illnesses. So can you explain to our listeners what currently is categorized as a catastrophic illness, and how does St. Jude determine those and which ones to put focus and support on?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's really life-threatening diseases, catastrophic diseases. A lot of people just think about cancer, and obviously that is really our founder, Danny Thomas. That was his focus, right, when he founded St. Jude in 1962. But we have seen other diseases that there may not be a cure, or there may not be a lot of treatment options out there. I'll give you an example, like sickle cell disease that happens in a lot of children, where there were just not a lot of treatments available back in the 60s and 70s. And so our scientists were looking at a variety of different diseases that were life-threatening, that there weren't a lot of options, and that our scientists could help to develop treatments or protocols or even cures. And so sickle cell is a great example. The bubble boy disease, I don't know if you remember that, back in the 80s, I think it was, we ended up curing bubble boy disease. And then, just a variety of other different diseases that are specific to children, that are, like I mentioned, life-threatening, where we're doing active research, or we are really focused in terms of what our team is striving to do with finding a cure or a treatment. But there's a variety of them, Rob. I think sickle cell is a good example. We're actually on the cusp of curing sickle cell disease with a lot of the treatments that we've been able to discover at St. Jude. And so, obviously we want to be able to share that so that any child, if they go to their local hospital, that doctor will be able to access what that regimen is, on the local level. So yeah, it's an amazing place doing a lot of really great work.
That is amazing, and how cool that that sickle cell is nearing a cure. That's just amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. And I wish that I could talk more about the scientific approaches. I really don't want to misspeak, but I do know that there's a lot of the technology, CRISPR technology. It's really mind-blowing when you sit down and talk to a scientist. Of course, I pick up bits and pieces of it because I'm just a layperson, but it really is amazing to hear the work that these folks are doing and where that's going. So yeah, very exciting.
Indeed. And I'm always fascinated with this question. Talk to us about how you initially got involved with St. Jude and that it led you, to the executive director position you're in today.
Yeah, so I've been working in the world of nonprofit, not my whole career, probably half. Started in sales and marketing for retailers, and I was naturally drawn to fundraising just because of my sales. Like I just spent a lot of time in the sales world, and fundraising is a lot like sales. Obviously, there's a mission component to it. But the rewarding part of fundraising was something that I just lacked personally. I have always felt like giving back to my community was just something near and dear, just held to my family values. And I just so happened to get in touch with the right folks over at the American Heart Association, and they gave me my first job in fundraising, kind of took a chance on me, not having any real experience, and it just sort of catapulted from there. I was able to help with their heart ball and raise funds for that really important mission. And then just, the way that your career kind of evolves, I saw an opportunity with St. Jude. And in the world of fundraising and philanthropy, St. Jude is probably, in my opinion, the pinnacle. It really is. I just have always admired the organization and the mission. And when I saw there was an opportunity to work here, I had to jump on that. And I was blessed to have been given this platform and really to be able to inspire our team here to raise the important funds necessary to keep the mission going and really just meet a lot of great people who help us along the way, volunteers, donors, partners, and supporters. So I'm just super blessed. I tell the team I'm never leaving. I'm a lifer. Sorry. There will be other ways for folks to get promoted because obviously we have a great culture, just a fantastic culture. So, but it's not going to be in my seat. So I'm here for a little bit because I just love the work that we do.
That is that's fantastic. And this actually leads to my next question. And I think you're probably, and it's one of the reasons that compelled me to ask you to be on this program is you have experience with multiple national nonprofit organizations. And one thing a lot, and I see it with certain nonprofits that may come into an area and they try to do it their way. And those are rarely successful, whereas the ones that kind of come in and they understand the landscape are able to be ultimately successful. So how, from your vast experience at, two different medical causes that are different from one another, but, obviously are helping to cure and care others, how do you balance highlighting the mission of a global organization while giving the event a local feel?
Yeah, that's such a great question. We are a national organization, but we touch people all over the country, all over the world, right? So when we've got families who benefit from St. Jude here in Houston, but that the local hospitals, and this is so interesting that I didn't really know, but if a patient goes to a local hospital, let's say Texas Children's, they can benefit from the protocols that were invented at St. Jude, right? So because Texas Children's has adopted a lot of those treatments and protocols as that's the way that we would treat this type of leukemia, or that's the way we would treat this type of, brain tumor, right? So knowing that we've got these really great relationships with these local institutions, that these families and these kids are being affected by treatments that were invented at St. Jude, that wouldn't have happened without our donors and our supporters, right? And a lot of our local stakeholders, our committee members, our advisory council members, they recognize that, and knowing that it's not just a hospital where we treat, say, 8,500 kids per year, right, who have cancer or other catastrophic diseases. It's about the halo effect that comes from the research, that comes from the protocols that we're putting in place, or just, being able to say that that there's so many families that have benefited from all of the work that we've done over the years at a local hospital. And so, yeah, I think it's important for us to be able to tell that story. And also, I also think it's important that, when someone is diagnosed with a catastrophic disease or a cancer, they're at their local hospital and their doctor might be saying, there's nothing more that I can do. You take your child home and spend time with your child. But if it wasn't for a place like St. Jude, where we actually offer that last hope, we're the ones that those families then go to or turn to, right? And say, hey, I have been told that there's nothing that my local hospital can do for my child. And then that, whatever that work might be that the researcher is working on currently for that particular type of cancer, that child can then go, and it's experimental. We know that it's not covered by insurance. We know that it's something that only St. Jude can treat because they're on the cutting edge of making a discovery. So that it's kind of like, it just kills so many birds, right? The family doesn't have to worry about the bill. And there's that cutting edge treatment that's being worked on at St. Jude that might not be being developed at a local hospital. So just knowing that some place like St. Jude exists, because you never want to be on the receiving end as a parent of news saying that your child has been diagnosed with something like this. Knowing that some place like this exists is also a message that we want to convey to folks living here in Houston. So I think our local partners understand that, our stakeholders understand that, our volunteers. And when we have our events like the gala, we talk about that. That's our message. And so that people understand why it's so important to support an organization like St. Jude. We might be national, but we're very local in the work that we do.
And I can't wait to talk about the gala in a moment. But I did have one question I wanted to ask you, and that was, and I'm glad you brought up the local advisory councils, because I know a lot of organizations, when they're looking to open new chapters and markets, that's one thing they struggle with. What advice would you give to an organization that's looking to create an advisory council so that you're filling it with good quality people that further your mission, as opposed to just having 10 warm bodies that aren't necessarily either aligned with the organization or going to do the work necessary?
Yeah, that's such a great question. It's often a struggle. It really is. And the way that it has sort of transpired for us is finding that champion. I think we started really looking at what corporate organizations support St. Jude here locally or have been supporters here locally for quite some time, right? And so it's identifying a champion and really being honest with that executive. And it's usually we like to look at folks who have the sphere of influence, people who are well connected in the community, people who, obviously have a heart for St. Jude, have been supporting St. Jude or other children's charities. and understand that, and they understand their social capital, if that makes sense, right? So, having those conversations that are very direct and saying, hey, I need your help, but I also need you to help me find other people just like you, right? So, oftentimes you empower these volunteers and they get really excited about it. They want to help. They don't quite know how to do it. And so it's really up to me to help them get to that. And, obviously it's, who is in your network? Let's look at the folks that are in your network. Let's do a little bit of relationship mapping, if you know what that means. It's really just sort of kind of peeling back the onion and helping them realize that, wow, they may know more folks than they thought that they did, and that they are influential more so than they thought that they were, right? So it's just getting them feeling really excited about the work that we're doing, being very direct in your ask. And that there's, that constant follow-up. We have an amazing advisory council. It started with one chair, and he was, he understood what we were trying to do, helped us develop our vision, mission, and objectives for the council. And then he went out starting to recruit folks, and we had these meaningful, very direct conversations with these folks, asking them if they would, they needed to dedicate the time. And, we oftentimes as fundraisers sort of already decide for them. It's almost like, oh, this person doesn't have time. They don't have X, Y, and Z. It's really allowing them to come to that decision and not getting in the way so much as to like what you in your mind as the fundraiser or the director thinking how this person would be able to contribute, right? So, you just have to ask those honest questions and really just be consistent with it. And for us, obviously having that volunteer asking another volunteer, and then and really just sort of building it from there. We were lucky and found some really great folks that were all willing to do the work that was necessary. And we just are very consistent. We hold our quarterly meetings. Everybody is very engaged. I have been at other organizations, like to your point, where you've got 50% participation. Sometimes people don't even return the emails. I mean, I can say like over the last 3 years that we've had this advisory council, we have near 100% participation in all of our meetings. And it's because these folks are really in it and understand what's being asked of them.
What a fantastic answer. And it's literally that one person was, the seed or the sapling, and now it's a big giant oak tree. To keep it Texas real here with the oak trees. So,
Yeah, that's right.
I'm glad you mentioned that part. The other component locally, and you alluded to it earlier with Texas Children's, and Houston is so fortunate to have world, 5-star world class medical care in it. Talk about how you partner with other organizations like Texas Children's that you mentioned to further plant roots for St. Jude in the Houston community.
Yes. So our team, our doctors, our researchers are constantly collaborating with other medical institutions across the country, right? And we recognize top tier MD Anderson, Texas Children's right in our backyard. I'm a fourth generation Houstonian. I know the power of the medical center, and I totally understand that they're the best of the best, live here in Houston. And what I was so, pleased to find out was that there were several different consortiums, different projects, different, sort of research, already that collaboration around research happening around specific types of cancer, right? I know there's a very big brain tumor consortium that happens between MD Anderson and St. Jude already. So it's like the great minds just align, right, on some of the work, because I know there's a lot of great work happening with institutions here in Houston. There's a lot of great work happening at St. Jude. And so it's how do we come together in a real meaningful way to just advance the cure, because that's really at the end of the day what is most important, is that we all have that same goal in mind, and it's in advancing the cure. And we on the fundraising side, don't really kind of get a lot of like, we don't get into the minutia of what is happening with all of those conversations. Just knowing that they're happening, that there's great collaboration. We get so many referrals every single day from doctors at TCH and MD Anderson. And these are doctors who, obviously have the information. Like you said, the best of the best of the best who look at their patients on an individual basis and say, you know what, I know that there's something happening at St. Jude for this particular type of cancer that's so genetically like you're like that is just you for you as because this is something special that we haven't seen, but we know that there's some work happening at St. Jude and we'd like to refer you to St. Jude, right? So that happens every single day. So there's constantly our doctors. We have I had a really great story of a doctor Dr. Gajar at St. Jude. He is working on brain tumors and specific types of brain cancer. And I'm I volunteer for Make-A-Wish Foundation, and I had a wish kiddo who had a particular type of brain cancer, and mom was going to MD Anderson, and she was asking questions, and I said, well, I just heard from Dr. Gajar. I know he's working on some really great stuff happening with this very specific type of brain cancer. I emailed Dr. Gajar. He emailed me right away and said, hey, if you want to put mom in touch, I know what's happening with what's this type of work at MD Anderson already. She is in good hands at MD Anderson, but I'd be more than happy to talk to mom to see if there's something else that I could be looking at. And, and she even told me on the email, I know exactly the doctor who she's working with. I know exactly the work that they're doing. And I know that that would be probably the same that we would be doing here at St. Jude. So that just, in my mind, just sort of, it lightened me in knowing that it's all connected. And like I said, with the sole mission of just curing these kiddos and finding a cure for cancer.
What I appreciate most about that story is it's very easy for you to just say, okay, it's going to be at the top and it's organization to organization. But what you have are the actual stakeholders doing the care and the physicians at these medical institutions coming to you. So you've got their buy-in, and that is such a key critical part, because two brands can say, okay, we're going to partner, but if you don't have the buy-in underneath the hood, it's not going to be effective.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's crazy to think, and I'm just here, in Houston, Texas, emailing this doctor who's got all kinds of, like work that he needs to be doing, and just the attentiveness. And every single patient deserves that. And it really blows my mind. And knowing it kind of gives you obviously so much hope that that we're going to get to where we need to and combat these terrible diseases.
Absolutely. And, I know we're here to talk about the gala, so I'm excited to dive in and talk about that. And that's yet another local, let's give it a local Houston feel. So, we've been talking about leadership quite a bit. So obviously the event chair is basically kind of the quarterback of the event. So talk about how you all go about selecting event chairs, and what are the keys to a successful relationship between an event chair and the nonprofit organization.
It's very important. So we like to say our fundraising is volunteer led, staff supported, right? So we really empower our committee and our chair. It's their event, their name is on it, and especially our chair, that they feel that it's very aligned, right? So what our mission is, we have a very a trusted brand, right? And we are very cognizant of how we're being seen in the community. We want to make sure that the message comes across very clearly. So our committees, we take a lot of time to educate our committees so that they know about the mission, they know about St. Jude. But we take also a lot of time to listen to our committees about what's important to them in terms of the St. Jude message locally, right? Because what resonates here in Houston does not resonate in St. Louis, Missouri, or New York City, right? So it's a two-way street. And it's important that the committees then feel empowered to go out, sell St. Jude, tables at the gala, sponsorships, that they have all the tools that they need. And, we believe very strongly that the chair should come from the committee, right? So we're constantly looking for new folks to add to our committee. I think our committee is like 25 members strong. And we've got little subcommittees where people have different focuses, but we feel very strongly that the chair should come from the committee, that they're already kind of ingrained into the work that we're doing, so that when it comes time for them to do it, they know what what they want that message to be, right? And the last couple of years, the chair and the committee, they've been really laser focused on research. They said, we do so much with research, all of the advances, sharing it freely with the world, that we need to tell that story better in Houston. And this audience, yes, the no bill message is important, but this audience, I think they want to hear about these breakthroughs. I think they want to hear about how St. Jude stands apart from others, but also why St. Jude. Why should supporters support St. Jude in Houston, knowing that there are other really great organizations that they could support as well. So I think part of why we choose the chair from the committee is because they've kind of been, like I said, ingrained in these conversations. They then can come up with what does that message look like for you? And in this year's chair, her name's Laura Maffridge. Her family, the Maffridge family, has been supporting St. Jude for years and years. They're wonderful. It's like a family, right? It's like you get Laura to chair the event, but you're actually getting the whole family in supporting the gala, right? So it was very important for her to talk about, like, beyond just the walls of St. Jude in Memphis, Tennessee. Like, what does that mean for folks here in Houston? And she really loved how the treatments and protocols that were invented at St. Jude can be applied to anybody who is receiving care at Texas Children's, and that it's not just Memphis, Tennessee, one hospital, but that it's all across the country, and that it's important to tell that story, right? So she we ask these questions. We want to really get into the root of why, because at the end of the day, she's getting up on the stage and telling the story, and she has to come from her heart, right? And what she truly believes in. So we're really cognizant of making sure that our committee members, like I said, feel very empowered, that they're educated, that they've got the tools that they need. Myself and our staff lead, we have a senior advisor, our event planner, some of our local stakeholders, even some folks from our advisory council, we get together and we talk about who this year, or next year should lead us, should chair this event. We talk about it. And then we make those asks, right? So it's usually like the chair prior would be very much involved with making that ask. We like it to be peer-to-peer. We don't want our, staff to get too injected into, like I mentioned, it's volunteer-led, staff supported. So, we want it to also be, it's a big decision. And I know our chair this year, she was like, really, you're choosing me? And I didn't think that this was something that, I could be doing, and thinking about, kind of what's going on in her life, but it ended up being the best choice. And we're so excited about the work she's already doing with the committee and what's going to end up happening in April next year. So yeah.
That's amazing. And what I really appreciate about that is that you essentially promote from within with an event chair, because you're finding someone in the subcommittees and you're rising and elevating them up. And that's essentially, if we're doing organization speak, that's essentially what you're doing. And, I'd love to hear how the subcommittees or any other thing that you can think of create a devoted following for the event. Because if you've got a successful pipeline, there's always going to be a core group of supporters that's going to bring broad swaths of the community to your event.
Yes. So this is interesting that you brought that up. So I don't know if you know that Danny Thomas was Lebanese. Danny Thomas was the founder of St. Jude 1962, and he was Lebanese American. And really, he went when he raised the $1 million to break ground on the hospital. He went to his Lebanese and Syrian friends and asked them for donations, right? So um, heritage is a big part of St. Jude, and Danny Thomas's heritage is, also very a big part. And we've seen our Lebanese friends sort of stick with us over the years. And in Houston, there's a very big Lebanese community that supports St. Jude. And we've been blessed with a lot of stakeholders and folks who have supported our event, this event, the gala, for years and years, and have really helped to sort of, well, within the Lebanese community, bring a lot of people into the fold. And at the same time, we've kind of gone through a metamorphosis over the last 5 years. These Lebanese folks who have been committee members, stakeholders in the work that we've been doing, longtime supporters, have decided really, let's open it up even more, right? We know we got a lot of Lebanese people supporting St. Jude. We need all sorts of ethnicities. We need to make it a little bit more diverse, different audiences. And so over the last 5 years, there's been a real conscientious effort from the volunteers themselves to bring in new folks, right? And, of course, they look to our office to say, oh, are there any sponsors that have been with us that maybe we can look at our sponsors to see if we can get some new committee members. And really, over the last 5 years, we've added, I would say, 50% more committee members that are newer to St. Jude, who are really excited about getting their organizations plugged in or their companies plugged in, their networks plugged in. So we've seen the ballroom really evolve, right? From really like heavy Lebanese, we that kind of cultural heritage feel into just a very different mixed crowd of different just different perspectives, audiences, heritages, or ethnicities come together to celebrate St. Jude, which I love. And it really came from them just saying, hey, we kind of tapped out. I think the Lebanese folks, we know that they're going to contribute year after year, but we need to grow this event. We need it to be bigger. It's got to be $1 million gala here in Houston. And the only way we can do that is we've got to open up the umbrella. We've got to invite more people in. So it's not happened overnight. It did take a few years. Like I said, I think it started like 5 years ago. And now this last year, we really saw that come to fruition where we doubled our revenue budget. We had some really great folks, very generous people in the room raise their paddle. The program was just so wonderful, and that the message just came through so clear, and that we were able to raise, $1.65 million. It was an incredible night. So I think now this is a very interesting time for us because we're going to sort of catapult off this, but use this as kind of like, okay, we've built this really great foundation with the gala, and now we're going to go full steam ahead in terms of what it's gonna look like moving forward. So it's really exciting.
It was cool to hear you describe that, and a couple of things. One is, and I'm speaking as someone not from Houston, Houston is an incredibly welcoming city. From the very first gala I went to 15 years ago, everyone immediately treats you like family. There is a welcomingness to Houston that a lot of other cities don't necessarily possess. And I think you all are fortunate, to be there to do that and to share that. And I loved your answer just about how you're bringing new people in because Houston has the right conditions to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. It is. Our ballroom is reflective of Houston, of the diversity of Houston, just even demographically, like ages. Like we saw more young people come this year than we've ever seen. That dance floor, I've never seen it pop the way that it was, and mostly because there was just a bunch of young folks out there having a good time. So yeah, it's awesome.
I saw that post-event photo. I was like, wow, that was a rocking time at the Reverse.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that, can kind of help people draw people in, and, people kind of overlook it sometimes or think it's frivolous sometimes, and that is a theme, because a theme can really kind of draw people in because it can really be a magnet when done right. So, talk with us about how St. Jude's determines a theme each year and share a little bit about the theme for this coming year.
Yeah, so the theme, yeah, you're actually right with that. We didn't really give a lot of cadence to the theme. I think it just sort of evolved over time where our chairs and our committees just felt like we needed something to just hone in on. And I think it also came to the messaging of what story we wanted to tell that night and, even who we wanted to honor. So the theme, last year, Breakthroughs on the Bayou, it really came because the research part, right? We really wanted to focus on research. And obviously, we're the Bayou City, so we thought that was really cool to sort of play off that. And this year we wanted to kind of look and feel very different. And the theme actually comes, a lot of it comes from the chair in terms of her, like this year, obviously, with her message, what she wanted to convey to the audience. And we have a great team. We have an event planner who kind of helps to create some mood boards. We think about years past. We want it to be look and feel different. We don't want it to be the same, even like down to the colors. So our event planner does a really great job of kind of creating some mood boards, different options, and then we talk to the chair about it. We used to talk to the committee, but that got a little bit kind of you go sideways very quickly when you get too many people giving their opinions. And so we want our committee to focus on fundraising and all of the great things to make the event a success, but we like to leave it to the chair to decide what theme are we going to go with. And so our event planner came up and we do have a great marketing team. St. Jude, we've got some great folks that work in marketing who kind of help us with some inspiration. But our chair really wanted to think about beyond, like beyond was a big word, like just beyond the walls of St. Jude, and how can we tell that story? And so she also sort of wanted it to be a little whimsical feeling and, feeling very hopeful and just people, kind of coming into the ballroom and just feeling this overwhelming sense of like, wow, like imagine the possibility of us curing childhood cancer one day, right? And then just going beyond what we've ever, thought that we could possibly do. So, like I said, our event planner, she did an amazing job coming up with some of the creatives. Our event chair helped narrow it down. The name actually, Imagine Beyond Possibility, that we went back and forth a lot of times to see if how we could nail that. She liked the 3 words, just thought it was really each word kind of on its own, really impactful. And we're excited. We've got a lot of really great ideas on how we're gonna bring that theme to life the night of the event. The Rivera is an amazing space, so it's like a canvas that you can work with. And we've got some really great vendors and folks who we've worked with over the years that are going to help us tell that story the night of the event. So we're excited about it. And like I said, it wasn't just us. It's a collaborative effort. We want it to feel like that everybody feels like they've got a part in it. So yeah, we're excited about it.
That's fantastic. And, one of the other key things that you all do each year is you also present a Mission Maker Award and you honor somebody. So talk about what the Mission Maker Award is and how you go about as an organization slash event leadership committee in selecting a nominee.
Yeah, so this is something that so we normally only have one Mission Maker Award each year, right? So this is our honoree. This is somebody who it's normally always someone who has been a long time or just a contributor of St. Jude here in Houston, someone local. It doesn't have to necessarily be just the gala, right? So we've got other events that are very successful here in Houston, but we really wanted to be a St. Jude supporter, somebody who has just been alongside us, in more ways than one. right? And so last year, Amal Zachem was our Mission Maker Award honoree, and it was really a no-brainer. I mean, we start sort of our small internal team. We kind of put a list together, and then we usually ask a couple of different stakeholders, volunteer leaders, maybe from our advisory council, who can kind of weigh in, and we talk it through. And we do have discussions around just some of the top choices. It's like, a small group of us that come together and talk about that. So Amal was a no-brainer. Amal actually chaired the gala herself for like 12 years. I mean, she's Lebanese, right? Of that heritage, and really was very, very instrumental in standing up this event and growing it. So it was a no-brainer when we, came to that decision. And then our organization in Memphis, our national executive office, had said to us that our organization wanted to honor the Polaris Dawn crew, right? So this was a group of astronauts that went into space. It was a mission that they actually did to raise money for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. The mission commander, Jared Isaacman, was a longtime supporter of St. Jude. He does this and raises a lot of money for St. Jude. And obviously, they just had a mission, and our organization wanted to honor him. And they said, what better city to honor him and the crew than Houston, Space City, right? NASA's there. You guys do a tremendous job with your galas. You have a tremendous committee. Let's also honor Polaris Dawn. And so, of course, we were like, great. Who wouldn't want to come and see some astronauts getting an award at our event? So that's sort of how that happened last year. So traditionally, it's just the one honoree. This year, we're sort of doing the same thing. We've got a short list of some folks who have just been tried and true supporters of St. Jude. We're narrowing it down. We want this to be, obviously it's an honor for our contributors and supporters to receive the award, and we want it to be very special for them. So we do a lot in terms of making that a special experience. And then obviously the night of the event, they're very excited. They want their folks in the room that are supporters of them, just to see them, receive the award. So it's a very exciting part of the program, and we're almost there in terms of selecting an honoree. So hopefully we'll be able to announce that soon.
That's amazing. And, I'd love for you to share and tease a little bit about, the experience when someone walks into the Rivera and what the gala's like. Because I got to tell you, I was blown away by that photo when I got it. I already knew, I was like, that's probably going to be my hero image of the spring of any cool event, with all those people on the dance floor. So talk about, what guests experience when they go into the St. Jude Houston Gala.
Yeah. So we love a pre-function space. We love a VIP reception. So we'll probably do a VIP reception. This is for just our high-level sponsors and supporters that we get to invite. We have an executive speaker. This year, we're going to have the president and CEO of St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, Dr. Downing, as our keynote speaker. He doesn't do a lot of events. He doesn't really typically like to leave campus, and he's got a big job running the hospital. But he is hitting the road this year, and is going to be going to 3 cities. Houston's one of them. So the VIP reception is an opportunity to maybe also meet Dr. Downing, because he'll be on stage. It's kind of like an intimate gathering. Our patient family speaker will be there as well. So it's also an opportunity to meet the patient family and just have that intimate space to just get to know one another. But for the most part, people will go into the pre-function space. We have an amazing auction, a silent auction. People can start to bid. The bar is flowing. We have a champagne wall usually where people can start, just mixing and mingling. And it's a really great time for people just to have that social time before they go into the ballroom, where, they need to take their seats and then dinner is starting. So we love that portion of it. This is usually it's a pretty tight space at the Revere. We've got over 500 people that come. So it kind of feels a little tight, but it also kind of feels like, gosh, I like that I'm here because there's a lot of other people that are here, and you just kind of feel like the energy. We've got the photo booths. We love our different photo booths, step and repeat. This is the time for people to do their social media. So it's a really cool, fun space. Then they go into the ballroom, and, we are very deliberate in looking at, the look and the feel of the ballroom, what that experience is going to be like. And then, obviously we go into dinner, and we have our program, and our program is, I'm excited about our program this year because we'll be able to hear from Dr. Downing to talk about St. Jude and tell some stories. Our patient family will speak. Our Mission Maker Award recipient will speak. And then, obviously we'll get to the bidding, the live auctions, always a lot of fun. We had an amazing auctioneer last year. He's coming back again this year. Trey Morris, who will lead us in the live auction and the paddles up, where we raise a lot of money. We gave out blinky rings last year. We gave out a lot of really great things to people who raised their paddles. And then we had a really great band. Can't remember the name of the band. Oh my gosh, it's totally come out of my head. But it's important that we have a good band. That then we're going to have an after party this year. We're actually going to sell tickets to the after party for the younger, like our young professionals who may not want to spend the money to come to the gala. They can come to the after party, dance on the dance floor. It's open bar. Photo booths are open. So we really encourage people to stay and to dance the night away because that's the fun part. That's the party. So just super excited about it. It's always a great time. And I think last year it was the funnest. We had so many compliments. Our guests loved it. The surveys were just 555. So we want to just repeat that.
That's amazing. And I know we're coming up on time here. And I want to end with this question with your wealth of experience. I know you'll have a great answer. And that is, what advice would you give to someone planning their first fundraising event?
Oh gosh. Well, you need to have really, I'm just saying that the committee is everything. You really need to spend a lot of time finding volunteer leaders as an extension of you, right? So you are only one person. Usually it's just the one person, or maybe they're lucky and they've got a couple of people on the team helping to fundraise for an event. But committee members can make or break your event, truly. And I think taking the time to find the right committee members, onboarding them correctly, giving them the tools and resources, and really just being super buttoned up. And that, I know it sounds kind of cliche, but you really want to just the follow up, having all of the resources available, and just being very organized. People thrive in that environment. Committee members don't like to feel like I'm involved with something that's super disorganized, that they don't know what's being asked of them. They're questioning, like, what am I supposed to be doing? Clear direction. It really, I think, makes or breaks an event when you have a committee that's working for you and with you to make this event a success, because you can't do it alone, right? They're the ones that are going to help to open up the doors for the sponsorships. And, obviously then comes your event chair. So I say, you got to spend a lot of your time just building that committee and making sure you've got your stakeholders. There's no way you can do an event without help like that. So I would say that's like number one. And all of it, all the rest of it is like templated. It all kind of falls into place. I think if you do one gala one time, you kind of can do you can do an event. It's just sort of like that cut and the paste, right? But the people, what makes it happen, and those committee members, that you got that help in order to make the event a success.
Thank you for that answer. And the committee and subcommittees are so important because they bring the leadership and they'll bring people who want to be there. And what, like you said, Angela, the guests are everything because you feel it in a room. And when you've got 500 people who want to be there in a condensed space, that energy almost bursts out of the room, but in a really, really, really good and magical way. And you can see how this
Yes.
event has grown and evolved. And I'm excited to see what's next. And I hope you all will come back next year to talk about how to throw a dazzling after party because I know it will be off the chain.
I love it, Rob. Well, you need to be there. You
Oh,
need
well,
to make
thank
sure
you.
you're there.
I'm gonna have to see if I can pop over to Houston for that. That would be amazing. So I will see what I can do on that. And Angela, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And the 2026 St. Jude Houston Gala, Imagine Beyond Possibility, benefiting St. Jude, will be held on April 18th, 2026 at the Revere in Houston, Texas. For more information, please visit stjude.org. And that will do it for this episode of Fun and Fundraising. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, reminding you to keep it fun, keep it interesting, and your guests will have a great time. Have a great day, everyone, and take care.